Hello everyone, I'm going to discuss a paper about vertical differentiation with overlapping ownership. This paper is in Economics Letters 2023. This journal is a B+ journal. The authors are Yoping Lee, Chang, and To. Okay. This is the introduction. There will be 4 parts in this paper. Introduction, second section is the model. Third is the comparative static, and the last one is the conclusion. So this paper focuses on the firm's incentive for product innovation in the vertically differentiated market. We find that overlapping ownership later on will be denoted as theta, while reducing the low quality firm's incentive to improve product quality. Overlapping ownership can raise the quality of the high quality firms. So the degree of vertical differentiation is higher, but consumer surplus and social welfare may increase compared with the case of independent ownership. In many literature, horizontal competitive firms are linked by overlapping ownership arrangement. Means firms with homogeneous good or horizontally differentiation good are linked by overlapping ownership. Most of the papers are discussed about this one, horizontally competitive firm, if they talk about overlapping ownership. So this raises antitrust concern on the firm may partially internalize the effect of their strategy. So usually the overlapping ownership or partial ownership reduce the competition. We can find in Alhang 2016, Posner et al. 2017. So existing studies analyze the competitive effect on overlapping ownership, usually take the product sold by the firm as given. So in this paper, we investigate how overlapping ownership affect the product innovation, later on will be denoted as VI, and the welfare. So this is very important. This is the purpose of this paper, how the overlapping ownership affect the VI and the welfare. So we consider a market in which the duopoly firms sell a product. The products are vertically differentiated. So in addition, they invest in innovative activities that improve the quality of their product. So means that the firms can improve their innovation to their product, which can improve the quality of their product. So the presence of overlapping ownership change the incentive for the product innovation and thus the degree of vertical differentiation. So we find that high quality firm may increase quality investment relative to the case of independent ownership. This means later on we can see that high quality firm may increase the quality investment or decrease. So we can find ambiguous result for the high quality firm. While the degree of vertical differentiation is higher in equilibrium, consumer surplus and social welfare can rise due to overlapping ownership. So in this paragraph, we can see that many papers talk about cross ownership. They say that cross ownership reduces competition, or we usually hear about anti-competitive. These are the same meaning. So in this paper, we instead focus on the quality improving R&D. If firms' quality investment decision when they have overlapping ownership are investigated by Brito. So in Brito, they also endogenize the investment. In a model of vertical differentiation a la Sheikh and Sultan, but the difference between this and the paper we're going to discuss, they say that with costless quality choice and a cap, there is the limit for the quality level, but in this paper, no limit for the quality level. So they demonstrate that the low quality firm chooses a low quality, whereas the high quality firm sticks to the maximum quality level. And social welfare decreases due to overlapping ownership. These findings are in this paper. So footnote 3 explains about they also consider only partial ownership. They also find that here the social welfare falls. In this paper, we analyze differentiation in hoteling model. So this paper uses hoteling model. The cost of investment is considered, which play an important role in the welfare analysis. So the cost of investment, later on we can see that cost of investment is over 2. So this is very important. So as I mentioned before, that no cap means no quality limitation in this paper. So we find that the high quality firm may choose a higher or lower quality level. Consumer surplus and social welfare do not necessarily deteriorate as a result of overlapping ownership. So now we continue to section 2 about the model. So as we see here that this paper uses hoteling model. A continuum of consumer of mass 1 are uniformly distributed on the segment. So the consumer are uniformly distributed along this line, which is from 0 to 1. So there are two sellers, seller 1 and seller 2 are located at y1 equals to 0. Seller 1 is located here and seller 2 is located at point 1. So they supply a product that is vertically differentiated. Seller 1 is the high quality firm, but seller 2 is the low quality firm. So we can see that the quality arrangement is this one. S1 is larger than S2, larger than 0. So footnote 4. This may reflect that firm's 1 product is a higher quality than firm's 2. Alternatively, consumers may simply perceive firm's 1 brand better, although the product quality is at the same level. So that's the perception. So both firms can invest in R&D. So means that both firms can improve their quality. So denote seller I intensity of R&D investment by V1. So the quality of its product become this one. So this is the original quality plus R&D investment. So this become the quality of the product. So the cost for the R&D is this one. The firm's variable production cost is normalized to 0. So for consumer located 0 to 1, her utility, so this is the utility, this is the quality, and this is the transportation cost, this is the final price. So the authors also mention here that the quality difference, initial quality difference between the two firms is delta. So for simplicity, we assume that S2 is 0 and T is 1. Okay. So besides making their R&D decision, the sellers compete in price, but different from standard Bertrand. Because here we assume that two firms own each other. So denote the share of seller's J stock held by seller I, where I is not equals to J, is theta. So this paper assumes symmetric shareholding theta, element from 0 to 1.2. Seller's I objective function become this one. Okay, so the game setting is in this paragraph. First stage, sellers simultaneously make their investment, VI, and in the second stage, they set the price. So consumer sequentially make their purchasing choice either from seller 1 or seller 2. So we given the investment and the price, consumer who are indifferent between the two firms is theta, x hat. So how can we find x hat? We can just use u1 equals to u2. So this is the marginal consumer. Marginal consumer means the consumer which is indifferent between buying from firm 1 and firm 2. So let's denote S here. Okay, so if we denote this as x1, we can find x2, 1 minus x hat. So if here the red line is the consumer for firm 1 or seller 1, then we can find the consumer for seller 2 is 1 minus x hat. So we can write the firm's profit as this one. So this is the cost for the R&D. We use backward induction to solve the subgame perfect equilibrium. So to ensure the second order condition satisfied, we have eta larger than eta lower bar equals to this one. And also to avoid, because we know that firm 1 is the high quality firm and firm 2 is the low quality, so that firm 2 exists in the market, we have this condition. Okay, then we can find P1 and P2 in the second stage. Okay, so as we see, having a higher level of product quality causes the firm to price higher and its rival to price lower. So when we take the first or partial derivative of Pi with respect to V1 and P2 with respect to V1, we can find this. These are the same as this one. Means that increase in investment for firm 1 increase its price, but increase in firm's 1 investment will lower price of firm 2. So the own and the cross price effect of R&D is smaller when the seller have overlapping ownership. Means that because we have theta here, increase in theta, denominator is higher. Means that when there is a cross ownership, the effect of investment to the price is lower. The same as this one. So it's easy to verify that the price of firm 1 or seller 1 is larger than P2, and both price increases with theta, provided that the quality difference between the two sellers is not too big. We can see this explanation. The partial derivative of P2 with respect to theta is larger, means that increase in ownership or overlapping ownership increase P2. But for P1, we only need this one. We satisfy in equilibrium. Next, so given their quality level, the high quality firm charge a higher price than the low quality firm, and both firms tend to charge higher price if they are interlinked by overlapping ownership arrangement. So we can find lemma 1 here. This is the equilibrium, R&D, and price. So the high quality firm invest more to improve product. So we can compare V1 and V2. So we can find that V1 is larger than V2. And of course, because the R&D investment is higher, then higher quality, higher price. The intuition could be understood as follow: being the high quality firm from the beginning could charge a higher price to consumer and enjoy higher markup. So the incentive to prove product quality to attract more consumer is therefore higher. So higher quality leads to a higher price, and that the firm set in the second stage of the game. So next we continue to the comparative static. So in this section, we want to see the effect of cross ownership theta affects outcome and social welfare. So we find proposition 1. Overlapping ownership reduces the low quality seller R&D incentive. There exists delta 1 element from 0 to delta bar, above which overlapping ownership raises the quality seller R&D investment. Okay, so we can prove this from proposition. This means that theta lower the V2, but here theta can lower or increase the V2. We can find it from here. We take the partial derivative of V1 with respect to theta. We can find this, and partial derivative of V2 with respect to theta. We can find this one. So we denote this as G1 is a function of delta, G2 is a function of delta. Okay. So we can see from here that delta 1 equals to this one, which solve G1 function of zeta equals to 0, such that, so here that when delta is lower than delta 1, increase in theta reduce the R&D for firm 1. If delta is large, delta here means S1 minus S2 equals to 0. S2 means equal, because we assume for simplicity that S2 equals to 0, equals to delta. Means that when the quality difference is low enough, common ownership reduce the R&D of firm 1. However, when delta quality difference is high enough, common ownership increase investment of firm 1. So it's ambiguous. It can be theta can decrease V1, but theta also can increase V1. It depends on the initial quality difference. However, for V2, theta always decrease V2. Okay, so here, thus the effect of overlapping ownership on the product innovation is generally ambiguous for feed V1. This is somewhat surprising. In Lopez and Fifis 2019, they focus for the cost reducing process innovation. They say that overlapping ownership decrease R&D unless the technology spillover between the firms innovate in activities is sufficiently high. But the difference with this model, we don't consider about spillover. But meanwhile, the firms are asymmetric in terms of the quality. Overlapping ownership by softening the competition benefit both firms, yet the higher quality firm more. And so from 1 and 2, we can see that delta increases P1 but decreases P2 from here. Delta increase P1, delta decrease P2. So thus, actually I already put here. So thus, for the high quality firm with a bigger margin, its own profit become more dominant. Its incentive to improve quality to capture more consumer may be higher as the degree of overlapping ownership rises. So for the low quality firm, placing more weight on the rival reduces its incentive to compete in the R&D stage, as we would intuitively expect. In the following proposition shows that even if the seller's one R&D investment decrease with theta, the level of vertical differentiation increases delta. So we can see in proposition 2, overlapping ownership increases the degree of vertical differentiation. We can prove from 7, we find this one. So with overlapping ownership, the firm further differentiate themselves as to elevate competition. So this is consistent as Brito et al. 2020. Next, in this proposition, we see overlapping ownership causes the high quality firm to charge a higher price and low quality firm to charge a higher or lower price. For firm 2, it depends on the quality difference. But for firm 1, it's always charging higher price. We can prove proposition 3 from the appendix here. You can see from equation 8, if eta is this value, we can see that partial derivative of P1 with respect to theta and partial derivative of P2 with respect to theta is always larger than 0. However, if eta is not equals to this one, we can rewrite that partial derivative as this one. So this value is the same as this one. We see here delta 3 equals to this one. So we have two cases here. First is eta, because now we are talking about eta is not equals to this value. So when eta is larger than this value, which implies that this one numerator is negative. and delta 3 is negative. So if this is negative, this is negative. Okay. First we go to this part. If this is negative, this is negative, this is negative, means increase in theta, increase P2. Now we continue to this one. If this case happen, this is negative, but this one is positive, right? So we use delta 3 plus delta bar equals to this one. So this one will always negative for all delta element from 0 to delta bar. We have this one is negative. So this one now is negative, negative, positive. So means that delta increase in theta, increase P1. Next, we continue if theta is lower than this one. Okay, now if lower than this one, of course this one is positive. This one is positive. So positive, positive, increase in theta, increase P1. Okay, now for P2, this one is positive, this one is positive, but this one is negative. We take delta 3 equals to delta bar, obtain eta 1 equals to this one. So when eta bar is lower than eta 1, lower than this one, delta 3 is larger than delta. Delta 3 is larger than delta, means delta 3 minus delta is positive. So we have eta increase P2. So it depends on delta. Okay, so we can find that if eta lower than eta 1, then delta 3 lower than delta bar. So we have when delta is larger than delta 3, increase in wrapping ownership, increase P2. But when delta is lower than delta 3, increase in theta, increase P2. So to summarize, we have shown that theta always increase P1, but theta can lower P2 if eta lower than eta 1 and eta larger than delta 3. So otherwise, the low quality firm charge a lower price if the cost of R&D investment is sufficiently low and the initial quality disparity is sufficiently high. Otherwise, it's also charge a higher price. But in either case, we verify that this difference is higher when theta higher. So the markup net of quality which affect consumer welfare increases with the degree of overlapping ownership. By the high quality firm, markup net of quality can increase or decrease. So consequently, the more consumers switch to the high quality firm. We can also prove here about the markup. Next, in proposition 4, overlapping ownership raises consumer surplus if the cost of R&D investment is sufficiently low and the initial quality disparity is sufficiently high. Otherwise, it reduces consumer surplus. So there exists delta 2 element from 0 to delta bar, above which overlapping ownership raises total welfare. So we can prove proposition 4 by this one, delta CS over delta theta. And the second one. So here we can see that this one is positive, this one is positive. So, and then this one is positive. So positive, 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 and positive. So we can see the critical value here. We can find it here. It's easy to verify that delta 2 lower than delta bar. So we can see that increase in theta increase social welfare if quality difference is large. But increase in theta will decrease social welfare if quality difference is low. So solving delta bar minus delta 4 equals to 0, we can find this as eta 2 larger than eta over delta. So if eta larger than eta 2, then this one is positive. Means that negative, which implies that for all delta element from 0 to delta bar, there exists increase in theta, lower consumer surplus. But if eta lower than eta 2, we can see that increase in theta increase consumer surplus. And this also can decrease consumer surplus. So it could be calculated that firm 1's markup net quality decreases with theta when the cost of R&D is low and the initial quality disparity is big. So reduced competition due to overlapping ownership raises the high quality firm's R&D incentive when the initial quality disparity is high in proposition 1. So when firms' profits are included, the cost parameter does not play a role as the firms internalize the investment cost when making their profit maximizing decision. So total welfare increases with the degree of overlapping ownership, provided that initial difference in the quality is big enough. So this result is different with Brito et al., which social welfare ambiguously falls, but also different with Lee and Chang, which increase in horizontal differentiation causes welfare to drop. If we find here that increase in delta means product vertically differentiation increase, can increase social welfare, but here when increase in the horizontal differentiation can reduce the welfare. So our conclusion, this paper adds to the literature by focusing on the firm's incentive for product innovation. So we model a vertically differentiated market with both high quality firm and the low quality firm can improve their quality product. But they need the cost for the investment. So we find that overlapping ownership does reduce the low quality firm incentive to improve product quality. Theta reduce V2. The high quality firm's incentive can increase. So although the degree of vertical differentiation increase, there is a scope for the overlapping ownership to improve consumer surplus and social welfare. So that is all for the discussion about this paper. Thank you.